Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7. In episode 7, you're going to see our power supply box. So we've got this board mounted in here. We've got our 5-volt power supply mounted. It's all secure. Everything's mounted through the bottom. So we've got screws. And I've installed this terminal block also because this is going to be the way that I distribute power. So I'm going to have power coming in. I'm going to have a fuse holder. I'm going to have a power switch. I'm going to need to send power to this board and to the 5-volt power supply. And then there'll be a separate wire that comes out of this 5-volt power supply and runs out of this bundle and will go through to a 16-pin Molex connector that I'm going to be installing on this bundle of wires here. And there'll be a matching Molex connector on the radio. The only thing I'll have to figure out here is how I ground this thing. So I'm going to use a 3-prong cord, obviously. And the 3-prong cord is going to be, obviously it's ground there. I'm going to need to figure out how I get that ground back to the radio. So I'll probably just run a piece of copper back through to that bundle and make sure that it's grounded to the chassis of the radio. I'm going to need to look at the schematic and make sure, but that's going to be the way that I do it to keep it safe. And that's really no problem at all. I'm going to use some kind of sleeving on this bundle of wires here, you know, that mesh sleeving. I have a whole bunch of that stuff, and I have some of that tubing that you can use also. So that'll keep everything contained and together. But we are gonna make sure we ground things correctly, and I'll use a separate Molex connector for that, a single Molex connector, which I already have. So I think we're going to be in good shape here. And really, what's left to do at this point is mount the power cord, mount the fuse holder, mount the power switch, mount the 120 volt indicator power light that I have. I'm going to mount that right here, actually, somewhere on here. I was going to do it on the cover, but that's silly. You're not going to see the cover when it's in the cabinet. You're going to see the front. So we're going to mount it here, and then we're going to be in good shape. Relative to this negative 45 volt supply, I did consult with Brendan, and you know his feeling was, hey, 32 volts is enough for negative grid bias. So we're going to leave it for now, and I think we should be okay according to what Brendan said. But we'll see. If we're not, then we'll go to Plan B. And we were almost ready to test the radio out. I still did not install the tuning capacitors and all the volume control and the power switch on the radio, so I need to do that. But it's good to have this out of the way. At least I can put this aside, and when I'm ready, I've got something to test it with. And the only other thing I need is a speaker. I don't have the speaker for the radio. I've got to talk to the guy in my band that I'm doing this for, and see if he could find the speaker. But looking at the schematic, I'm pretty sure that it's a 7,000 ohm speaker. But I need to go back through the documentation and confirm that. I may have a 7,000 ohm speaker somewhere here, but I'm going to need to look and confirm that before I go any further on that one. So I'm sure I'll have a test speaker here that I could use to test the radio. And I don't know what kind of shape the original speaker's in. It could be completely blown out for all I know. I just don't know. The cone could be gone. I have no clue. So we'll cross that road when we get to it. So here's where we are. So I'm gonna shut this down for now. I'll do all the work on the switches and the power and the fuse holders, and I'll bring you back and show you what that looks like. But I've got plenty of airflow in here. I can take these knockout plugs out and make sure I have good airflow, and I've got the supply standing up. So there should be no problem with airflow here. We should be in good shape. I'll be back when I've got all this wired. Okay, I'm bringing you back here on our power supply. We've done a lot of work since what you just saw a few minutes ago. So let me explain a couple things here that's going on here, and then we'll power it up and just show you what it looks like. So first of all, if you recall, what I mentioned a little while ago was that I was only getting about 35 volts here, and this is the negative 45 volts that the radio requires. And you know, at that time we said we're just going to leave it. Well, we've come to a discovery. The capacitors that were in the circuit were 0.01s. And this design really requires 0.1. So basically what was happening is the voltage couldn't get up to where it needed to be because the caps were too small. So thanks to Brendan, he noodled it a little bit and came back and said, put 0.1s in here. So we fixed this supply now. So this is the C supply. And I'm definitely getting negative 45 and negative 4.5 out of this. So this is perfect. Also, I noted when I was testing that this capacitor right here was getting very hot, too hot. And that's not a good thing. And, you know, part of designing your own power supply, I've learned, is that sometimes you just have to experiment a little bit. So, so what I did was taking a look at this capacitor right here. The original design called for a 100 microfarad cap. And again, after consulting with Brendan, I think we realized that this was probably too large. So really what was happening is this thing was charging up way too fast, and it was just essentially causing this resistor to heat up. So what I did was I put in various values here with my my capacitance decade box. I have a electrolytic decade box that I built maybe a year or two ago. And I started with a 30, and the 30 worked, but I didn't like, I put it on my scope just to see what the, you know, what the voltage looked like, and it didn't look good to me. So I went up to a 47. So this is a 47 I have it here now, and it's perfect. When I put it up on the scope, I get a nice clean solid line. I'm not seeing any evidence that the cap is discharging and recharging rapidly or dropping or dipping, so that's really, really good. So this all has been rewired, and the only small issue that I have right now, which I'm determining what I'm going to do, is this circuit feeds itself right here. And this is a 250 ohm resistor. I get 185 volts here. Perfect, right? Radio calls for 180. When I bring it to this dropping resistor, I end up getting 175. And this is right before our Zener diodes, which is our, you know, which is our part of our supply that we need. So this gives us all of our voltages here. So I'm going to determine, do I put a smaller resistor in here, or do I just take it out altogether? So I'll decide about that. But with having this 47 microfarad cap here, these resistors are not getting hot very, very much at all. This one here, you can keep your finger on it, and it's not bad. I mean, it's a little warm, but it's supposed to be. So we've got this now in good shape. I've also mounted here the 5-volt power supply. It's mounted in the case. And you'll see that I have, I've installed a power cord, 3-prong cord, comes in here and goes to this terminal block. So here's the hot side, here's the neutral side, and then here's ground. And I have it fused. I have a fuse down here, and I have it switched. And then I have this supply also on the same line. So essentially I've got my 5 volts here and everything else here. And I did put if you can see it right here, a DC brushless fan. Quiet, small, shouldn't cause any interference. We'll see if it does. But I've got that mounted right here, and the wires run along here and along the back and connects to the 5-volt supply. So the 5-volt supply is going to handle the filaments and keep this thing cool when the cover's on it, because there is a cover. So what you're looking at here from a meter perspective, this meter right here is our 180 volts. 180 volts. You're going to see 175, as I mentioned, because of this resistor. And then we have our negative 4.5 and negative 45. So I've got it plugged in. We're going to flip the switch. Let's see what we get. Fan's running. You can hardly hear it. It's going to give it a minute to light up. So you'll see here from my B+, I'm getting 173.5 approximately. Here I'm getting minus 44.9, and I can adjust those voltages with these two trim pots right here. And then here we're getting negative 4.5, right on the money. Okay, so we've got all the voltages that we need here, our 5-volt supply and our B supply. So we're looking in good shape, right? This is A, B, and C, all in one box. So we are now in a position where we can use this power supply, and it's safe. The only thing I have left to do, as I mentioned, is run a ground wire from there to the radio. And I haven't installed the wires that go from the 5-volt supply out the box that go to that Molex connector. But we've got our power supply built. This resistor, nothing. I'm keeping my finger on there. It's perfect. What was happening before, you couldn't even touch it. It was so hot. Similarly, this resistor right here, mildly warm, but it works. and there's nothing happened on this one. This one's cool. So we've got our voltages now, and we're in good shape. I did have to replace these Zener diodes, and you know, this is a rookie error. When I first replaced this capacitor and turned it back on, I didn't put this this load resistor in place. This is the 4K load resistor. So I believe I just blew one of the diodes. I did order 5-watt diodes, which I'm probably going to replace these with when they come in, just to make sure that we don't blow them out. But in essence, we're in really good shape. So the only thing that's left to do for the power supply is to install the indicator light, which I haven't done yet. 120 volts, connects right to this terminal strip, and decide what I'm going to do with this resistor and replace the diodes that I mentioned. So our power supply is looking real good, and it's stable. It's really stable. And then, you know, I know some of you were concerned about noise. We'll see what happens. If I get noise, I'll take it out and build another board. It's simple. With a transformer. I have the real estate in here, right? So this is more experimental for me, but I now know that I'm getting what I need out of this thing, and I've got a cooling fan, and this thing should last forever this way. So the moral of the story is, when you build something and you design something, or you work with someone that does it, like Brendan, you know, you have to experiment just a little bit and test. You can't just assume that everything's going to work out of the box. You got to be prepared to do a little bit of testing and stuff, and you know, having the knowledge on how to do that is really, really critical to that. And you know, being able, for example, to put the scope on this and see if the DC supply is solid, or if it's fluctuating, that kind of thing. So we're in excellent shape. And what I'll do now is I'll end the video here. I'll put the indicator light in. We'll put the top on it. And this thing will be ready to use when we start testing the radio. This weekend, let's see, today's Saturday, I have a gig tonight, so not much happening today other than this. And then tomorrow, I'm going to put the tuning capacitors, all that back in place on the radio, wire everything, and then we're going to do a test run and see what happens. First, we'll light up the filaments only and see if the tubes light up, and then we'll decide. You know, we'll proceed with caution there. So really good progress here, I think, and I'm really happy that this power supply is built and is working so well. And you can see these voltages just don't go anywhere. They're fairly solid. So you know, it's fluctuating with the house current, which is house voltage, which is normal. But I think we're in good shape to go here. So we're going to end the video here. I hope everyone has a great day. And if all works out well, I'll be able to put a video up tomorrow on how the rest of the radio's coming along from the reassembly perspective. All right, everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.